Can we be frank? Can we be frank? Can we be frank? Can we be frank? Can we be frank?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Can We Be Frank, where the whiskey may be on ice, but the talk is always straight up.
Yep, always very straight up.
Thanks for tuning in today. It's a special episode. We got our first guest on the Can We Be Frank podcast. We're going to bring on artist and friend and relative to Robert, Lee Wiley.
Nepo baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you're not my baby, but
We're very thankful that Lee can come on and join us. We're going to get into a little bit of a conversation about a joint project he and Robert worked on, turning a screenplay into a graphic novel. But first, I want to kind of just let Lee introduce himself, a little bit about his background, and then we're going to give him the honor of the mystery topic of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name's Lee Wiley. I'm a illustrator and animator and video editor. And yeah, as a little kid, I got really into comic books, X-Men, Spider-Man. Wolverine was kind of my big guy back then. Just fell in love with them, fell in love with, I guess, storytelling with comics. And I have a great affinity for movies and pop culture and stuff and all of that. And so basically, you know, in the era we're in now with seeing so much comic book and graphic novel content being adapted into film and television, it's just, I mean, it's amazing. You know, stuff that we just dreamed of when, you know, I was a 10-year-old is now all happening. So that's just kind of, I guess, a little bit of background on my interests and kind of what I do.
Nice. Yeah, and actually, Lee is the one that designed our logo, so you're a
Yeah.
great graphic
That's
designer.
right.
We
On our
appreciate that.
shirts.
There we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the shirts.
Yeah.
It looks great. Thank you for that. You know, it's great. You know, whenever Mike and I need any art done.
Yeah, Lee steps up to the
Yeah,
plate.
and we always appreciate that. It's great to surround yourself with talented people.
Yep.
And what's interesting is my recollection, Lee, from your youth. I knew you were an artist, but I just remember the films you would make
Yes.
with your brother and
Making
sister
home movies.
and
Yep.
your dad. They would do these spoofs of, I remember the Austin Powers. And they were
Drake
like,
Towers.
yeah, that's right. And they were really, really well done.
Yeah. I miss Bike Cop. When's
Oh,
the
yeah,
next
Bike
episode?
Cop is
Come on.
the more recent, but
They were so
always
great.
very creative from a very early age.
Yeah,
It's great.
awesome. Do you have a topic for us?
Yeah. What are we?
So this
what
is
are
the
you
mystery
throwing at
topic
us?
we know nothing about
Yep.
that Lee's going to
Okay.
spring on us.
And we got to give our frank opinion.
Okay. First off,
How dare you?
um,
Sorry, go on.
okay. Let's just keep it simple.
Okay.
Okay. Simple's always best.
Tron Legacy. Talk amongst yourselves.
Ooh, that's a
Oh,
good one.
Tron.
What's your? I mean,
Love it, hate it. Just what?
Well, I
What
can
comes
tell
to
you
mind?
what. I can tell you what Pam thinks of it. You know, Pam, of course, my wife,
Yes.
is a Tron original hater.
Hater. Uh-oh.
Oh,
Like the
okay.
way I felt about Poor Things,
okay.
Pam felt about Tron.
About Tron.
Yeah, like I think she has PTSD. Something about it. I like the original because I was probably, gosh, when did that come out, Lee? Do you know the first one, Tron, in the 80s?
First
early
one, I think it
80s?
was 82.
Yeah, okay. So I was in 8th grade around there, so about the right age for it. I thought it was cool. I actually enjoyed Legacy. That's it. The end. You're welcome. I mean, I love Jeff Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I love anything he's in. So I always enjoyed that, and I like how they did the aging, de-aging thing, right? Didn't they?
Yeah,
do
that was early. That was early de-aging.
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, it didn't
what
look
they're doing now.
exactly like in the Indiana Jones and the.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
amazing what they can
But
do.
I don't have a visceral hate or reaction to
Yeah.
it. I enjoyed it. I didn't realize there was some
Is there
uprising
division?
of there's you clearly have an opinion, but we'll get
The
yours last.
programs are uprising.
Now wait a minute.
What?
Yes.
Sorry, but just to do a little pre-questioning here before we get your testimony. So none of you were born before Tron. So it would kind of be like, I have no comparison. So you saw Tron at some point in your youth, and you enjoyed it.
Mhm.
Then Tron Legacy comes out, and you feel how? Betrayed, thrilled.
Honestly, my connection to the original is not deep.
Okay.
I think it was more just, I think visually it was kind of cool to see what they were trying to do, but
Yeah.
it was the Power Glove, like it didn't live up to its expectations.
Yes.
If you've ever watched that movie, The Wizard, which was like a Nintendo movie, basically, they touted how cool the Power Glove was in this movie.
Yep.
And then everybody was just like raging to get it. And the Nintendo Power Glove comes out and it's a giant piece of crap,
Yep.
but it looks cool, And so,
Yep.
so the original movie, I guess I don't have any strong feelings towards it. I think watching it now, I think there's things I appreciate about it because I see the development that they went through and everything they were trying to achieve, but it just wasn't quite there yet. So, seeing Tron Legacy, I really went in with it like, I'm not sure what this is going to be, but I've always been fascinated by that world. So I'm just excited to see what they maybe do.
Mm.
And yeah.
And what did you think coming out of it?
Yeah.
I was pretty blown away, honestly.
Yeah.
I guess kind of one of the things that I was immediately taken with was the caliber of the visuals, like the visual designs, like they really nailed their production design with that movie. From everything that's, CG and everything that's practical, the suits, like those suits
Yeah.
still,
Very
just
cool.
a fantastic, cool look to them. And then I also loved the music. They collaborated with Daft Punk on that
Oh,
one.
nice.
Oh, that's cool.
And the original
that
Tron, I thought, had a unusual composer. No, am I remembering wrong? Was it like
I can't even remember who
Ah,
composed
gosh.
the original one.
Derek's going to pull it up? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
but there was a
Fix it in
Tangerine Dream. It's not Tangerine
yeah.
Dream.
Tangerine Dream did Legend.
Yes, and they did Electric Dreams or something. Anyways, they were kind of like the so I'm
Kinda
wondering
that
if Tron.
synth.
Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm taking a look real quick, see if I can
I
pull
thought
up
Tron had an unusual
Hmm.
soundtrack.
But that's another one of those we briefly mentioned in the other episode about Dune. It seems to be a trend now.
Yeah,
Oh, that's right. The original tune, and then these
Yeah.
remakes, or
Which-
even think about Godzilla. Like Godzilla
yeah.
was
Just
huge
won
when
an
I was
Oscar,
a kid,
yeah.
and now Godzilla -1, which I really want to see. I have not seen
I
yet.
haven't seen it.
I'll
but I've-
go see that. That's
Is it
incredible.
great?
It's a
Yeah,
good
that's
one.
what I heard, and someone said the budget was 15 million.
That's it?
Wow.
Yeah, the director actually corrected and said it was less than 15 million.
Wow.
So
Wow.
15 mil. So I don't know exactly what
Yeah.
the confirmed amount
It's
is.
like, what do you
but
think?
the
We're made of
studios-
money?
That's
No.
I mean,
Wow.
That's amazing.
Normally, I have this predisposition to dislike remakes and things like that, but it seems like a lot of them have been hitting it out of the park
Yeah.
recently. Dune is well received.
Mhm.
It's such a hit or miss topic for me because I'm looking forward to Beverly Hills Cop 4 now, whatever.
Wow.
Oh,
But
Mhm.
sometimes some of them are more of a nostalgia thing rather than they did a good job with the remake or the movie or whatever they
TV
did.
shows and
It's going to be good to me because I can be nostalgic about it, but it's exciting to see that they are some of the movies that are based on earlier films are doing well and resonating with a new audience of younger people.
Okay, but do you feel like there are films that are off limits? Like, I heard if they were to make
Back to the Future.
I was just me. That was my
yes.
exact example. They said if you were to make that today, they would travel back to like 1990.
Oh, God.
It's
Yeah.
just depressing.
Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale won't let it happen.
Oh, good.
Good.
So that's one of
Yeah.
those, right? You
Good.
don't,
Yeah.
you can't,
Don't touch
you
it.
can't improve on
Yeah.
perfection.
No.
Leave it alone.
And that's, I think, to Tron Legacy's strength, it improved upon what was
What they
there.
were
And I think
trying to
that's what
do.
I enjoyed it for, because it was like, again, the original idea was cool, but it didn't really fulfill its potential, where I felt like they really came a lot closer to it with that one.
That's how I
know.
felt with Top Gun Maverick.
Ah.
I wasn't
Yeah.
a huge fan. I saw Top Gun, the original, in the theater. It was fine. It was So I wasn't all that excited about the sequel, but I love the sequel.
It did a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the same director. That's
Uh,
Joseph Kosinski on both of those,
Okay.
Tron Legacy.
Oh, you're kidding.
And Top
Oh,
Gun
I
Maverick.
didn't know that. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
That's why.
to, I guess, to
That's
tangent a bit
interesting.
on Tron Legacy, that director Joseph Kosinski, he hasn't done a ton of films, but like his attention to detail and attention to visual execution and his attention to like I guess certain aspects of the story that he really loves to focus on. He's just really unique in that way. And again, he doesn't make a ton of films. I think he's only had like maybe 5 or 6 big budget films, at Tron Legacy being his first one back in 2010. So yeah,
Interesting. Very
Well,
good.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. But speaking of that type of style, I mean,
Yeah.
visually, Expiration Date. That's what we want to talk about. It's the graphic novel that Lee converted from a screenplay that you had written. Visually, it looks awesome. I love it. It looks so
Yeah,
great.
Lee did an amazing
And the poster
job.
there. There
There
we
it
go.
is.
Visually, it's amazing.
Go buy it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put the links there to buy it.
Yeah.
It's great.
And that's the volume that has all of them in the
yeah.
one.
This is the collected.
Because
where
it
we
was
got all
initially how
together.
many issues? Was it 6?
So we did 5.
Five,
We
yep.
we split up
That's
into
right.
5 issues and then put it together in the end.
Yeah, Lee did an amazing job.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was fun being part of that, to watch the journey the whole way
see,
through.
yeah.
And,
All
and
the
the
way
thing,
through.
and Lee, you'll tell this story from your vantage point. All I remember is having written it on spec, which means no one paid me to write it. It's just something I wanted to write. It went out like these scripts do when you write them on spec, and it got very favorable response from the studios. But they said the budget would be enormous, and where's Tom Cruise? Like, he's attached? No. Oh, so and so's not attached. Like, without a huge name producing or directing, you're just not going to get a film of that budget. Gosh, now what would that budget be? It'd be $200 million
Yeah,
probably.
Oh, man.
Made. So it was a great sample, and it got me a lot of meetings and work that way. But it was just something that sat in a drawer. And then at what point, Lee, how did it come up? Remind me, because I'm old.
Yeah, I think you started the conversation in about 2011.
So had I seen? Oh, that's
was-
right, because you had sent me some graphic novel work you had done.
Mhm.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
I've done
Okay.
some shorter stories.
Yes.
And yeah, and then you brought that to me and kind of started picking my brain on what it would take to produce that as a graphic novel.
And it seemed overwhelming to me because I can't draw, and I wasn't sure it was even possible, and how we would go about doing it. And we initiated a Kickstarter campaign. So
Yep.
we got the first volume done, if I remember.
Yeah, we used Kickstarter primarily, to get things going with that first issue, and then just kind of between our own efforts and financing that we just raised together, and like both you and Mike were part of sponsoring that. We've got with Mike's autograph business, like
That's right.
we
Autograph it,
put,
sponsor it.
That's right. Yep.
advertising material for that business in there. And so, we got all 5 issues done. And then when we went to make the final one, that's when we went back to Kickstarter, was to have that whole collected volume put together and get more backers and get more issues in people's hands.
Yeah, and we went to a number of conventions. We
Yeah, I
went
was
to
gonna say.
Those
WonderCon.
were fun.
Yep.
Yep.
The LA one. What was that?
Stan Lee's
Stan Lee's
Kamikaze
Comic
back
Con.
then. Now
It
it's
was
LA
that's
originally
Comic
Kamikaze, now LA Comic
Con.
Con.
LA Comic
That's
Con,
right.
yeah. Yep.
And
So-
visually, it looked so good. It was great. A lot of
It's
people
such
stopped by.
Oh yeah, great style. So take us through your creative process. So you get a screenplay
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Right.
Like, Lee, did you
because I
break it
didn't-
apart from
'cause
Robert's
I
script?
didn't do anything.
Okay,
to it.
that's my question. I
I
was wondering.
gave Lee the screenplay.
And that was it.
That was
Okay.
it.
So yeah, I want to know, what's your process, Lee?
Spill it.
Yeah. I mean, going through the screenplay the first time, really it was just me taking a lot of the things and taking the building blocks, because there's some visual building blocks in the script, but there's a lot that's not there, right?
Yeah.
So it was just kind of building off of what was there, and I guess just expanding it. And like one of the reasons I did want to bring up Tron was because this was right, not long after that movie was out, was a fairly big success, and I liked kind of that futuristic take that it had. And this story being set in somewhat of a futuristic setting, I was like, okay, so how can I take something like the visuals in Tron? This is not inside a computer. This is the real world. How do I apply it? And I was also very much into, and still am, into Blade Runner. And now we have a sequel to Blade Runner.
Right.
But back then there wasn't. So in my mind, it was like, okay, let's kind of do a little bit of that, I guess, not quite always clean, dystopian futuristic, but also combine it with some of that clean design work of like Tron. And if you check out the graphic novel, you'll notice we follow a pretty blue heavy kind of color scheme, and that was something that I think was kind of inspired a bit by Tron, also out of efficiency.
Right.
It was kind of keeping it to this one color palette that could be replicated pretty efficiently, pretty quickly, so that we could stay on timeline and keep the budget a little bit lower too, instead of being completely full color, which is something later you and I even chatted about.
Yes.
Revisiting that. And so that's kind of just where I think things just started to come together. I took what inspired Robert, what he had given me, and the things that inspired me, just see how I could kind of build off of those things. One thing Robert had mentioned too was like he had listened to Linkin Park's Reanimation album.
That's
like
right.
On loop. I had discovered that album. I wrote that entire screenplay to that album.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Every screenplay I write has a soundtrack, and that was that.
really?
Yeah.
We should put them on Spotify. Yeah. We should
That was it. That Reanimate album over and over.
But you're not inherently a musical person. I know your son is, but are
Excuse
you?
me?
Yeah.
Well,
hello.
I don't see you.
I play
piano.
But it's not like you know.
Well, I don't carry violin around.
No. I mean, I've never sat like I've at your Christmas parties.
I don't play.
I was going to say
front
I
of
sat.
people.
I saw Paul sit
Yes,
down and play
this
for
is
everybody.
true.
I've never seen Robert sit down at the piano.
I
and
do,
play.
just not in your presence.
Okay,
That's
I
right.
see.
Anyways, we digress.
Okay.
But yes. Can I just have a
So
shout
Robert
out though for a
is-
moment? Yes, go ahead.
No,
Yes,
no.
I am musical.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's be frank about that. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm just saying, but I am.
Okay.
But a shout out to Lee is what you have to understand is, sure, right? There's certain things as a writer, it's more what you don't put in when you're writing, because you see the whole movie in your head, right? So you're choosing what to describe, what not to describe. You can't possibly describe everything. And so you're choosing your moments. Now, then you give it to a film production crew. You have a costumer, you have a character designer, you have props, you have a set designer, you have all these different teams. Lee's a man of one, did every single one of those in this, right? You came up with the wardrobe, the sets, the props, the world, the
amazing.
color. I mean, it's unreal to me, and it's just phenomenal. I thought you did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, it was a blast. I mean, a challenge.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you said, overwhelming at times, but it's just, I don't know, just that fire in your belly that just keeps you going, and seeing it come to life. And then after, I think it was about a 5-year process to complete it all and
the
everything.
whole
Like,
thing.
what
Yeah.
an amazing accomplishment like to be a part of.
Yeah,
So,
and that when you see it all in the book,
It's cool.
it's a thick, because it's a 120-page screenplay. So and we didn't edit, if I'm remembering correctly, we didn't cut anything.
there wasn't.
It's
There
the
really
whole movie.
wasn't much editing.
Yeah.
In fact, we opened. You and I talked. I had an idea of opening a little different and
That's
actually
right.
adding.
That's right.
Because it opens with this senator at basically kind of his acceptance speech to be his party's presidential candidate, and like I pitched this idea of like somebody who's trying to warn the senator of some incoming doom, and he's stopped before he can reach the senator, and so the senator never finds out. And so this was just kind of this back and forth between between this guy who's trying to give a warning, and then the senator, giving his big speech and everything. And so I was just trying to set up, I think, just a little bit more of the tension and the action of, what's in store for this guy, what's going to happen. And so that worked out really cool. And you were on board, and I liked how it kind of added a little bit to the beginning of the story.
Oh, absolutely. And then I loved how you kind of judiciously used pops of color throughout to kind of punctuate certain moments. So you had this kind of blue cast, and then at pivotal times, you'd have this kind of color page or color palette, usually dealing with the Sci-9 capsule, which is part of the whole program. But yeah, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Lee, I always like to, a lot of the stuff that we talk about in the podcast is giving advice to people that may be trying to break into creative mediums like this. Since you kind of did everything on this, you kind of had to be both, illustrator, colorist, everything. Is that something that you enjoy doing all three? Is there anything you like drawing more, or did you like developing the visual story more, or is it physically drawing? Is it coloring? What's your favorite part of it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just because it's like, I want to tell the story, I'm willing to take on every role needed to do it,
Yeah.
So there's aspects of it that I love about everything. But if there's one thing that I enjoy more or above all, it's definitely just actually drawing line work,
Okay.
drawing the characters before it goes to color and everything. Is just, figuring out how to tell that story, how to frame it, and that sort of thing is just, for me, that's the most enjoyable part. The other stuff, can be a little bit more tedious and somewhat more, I guess, repetitive. When you're coloring, you kind of have a process. Well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to finish it.
Right.
More
A little
technical.
more like laying bricks.
Yeah, it's much more technical.
But this just gave me a thought, because at ABC Mouse, they're using AI now to a large degree to color ink.
Oh, wow, really?
And it looks pretty darn good. They say
Yeah.
they don't have to do a ton to it. Have you started using
Huh.
AI in any way to help, at least with the coloring, or no, it's not there yet, or you don't feel it doesn't help?
I personally haven't played around with it a lot. There's another artist that she's kind of played with it a bit more. She was kind of more going in the direction of, okay, how can I maybe build some backgrounds that could, speed up my process.
Sure.
I'd be able to, feed it a style, feed it a prompt, that sort of thing. And I think it had decent results. Again, she's still focused on the characters, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I mean, AI as a tool can do some pretty cool things. As I'm learning more about being a colorist, that is definitely not something I'm as well versed in. And I feel like any of us, I'm always learning more about this craft. And so as I'm getting more into coloring, my skills have changed a lot, and the way I approach it is different. And some of that stuff, I'm like, I don't even know how to train a computer to replicate the way I would do it, because I'm getting more to, this is something kind of tangenting a little bit. I got way into doing cardboard art over the last 8 years, actually drawing artwork on cardboard and doing that more, traditional, physical thing. I had to approach it differently than I would a computer.
Okay.
And one thing I did with that was use paint pens with the white, and being able to separate some lines with the white, and being able to make some things pop a little bit more. Well, I've taken that on in a lot of my more digital work too, where I'm going to use some colors, usually white, but some colors to exaggerate things and outline things, and kind of cut into some lines where they were originally all the way black, but just define some edges a little bit. And it's that's hard to teach a computer how to recognize,
Sure.
So I it's always going to be a balance. How far can it get things done, and then when do I jump back in and clean it up?
Yep.
And
Same
that's
with writing.
And that's scary that I'm all for moving forward and innovation to make things more efficient. But if we completely get rid of that, hand drawn, real paint, Bob Ross.
The human.
Like if you wouldn't have gotten into that, you might not have discovered that new thing you could do in a digital platform. Future artists down the road, I mean,
Right.
I'm worried we're losing something important.
Sure.
But I also, I'm remiss to say that we're gonna to be caught in the past. It's it's a really difficult line, and I know you're kind of skating the. There's a lot of people working in this industry. I have a lot of now artist friends, working in animation, and a lot of them generally aren't as gracious towards AI as you've been here. A lot of them are very negative, and I totally get it on some level. It's scary, but I'm also like, you need to embrace it. So I appreciate what you said about embracing it. But I am worried that we're going to lose something. Here.
I mean, you mentioned it, Lee. You said it's a tool, and that's how I look at AI for everything that I use it for, which is an art based. But I always look at AI as a tool. It's just like email. It's just like everything that's come before us, and it's like it's not going to go anywhere. It's here to stay. We got to embrace it. We got to figure out how to use it for good. It will of course be used for bad, and that's terrible, and we don't want to see that happen. But yeah, I like that you said that it's a tool, and I don't think it's ever gonna. I said this in the previous episode. I don't think it's ever gonna replace a human being, a creative human being. There's always going to be process.
Well, not
to
until
it.
the uprising, but
but
for now,
but for now, it's a tool. So yeah, I completely agree with you there, Lee.
Yeah, and it's. I don't get too deep into it. Like I don't spend a lot of time. I just got more important things going on. But
Sure.
That's great.
But just trying to find ways that it can be practically used is awesome. And then you come upon some weird odds and ends, like because there's people in the creative community are just like you said, they're just completely against
Shut
it,
off. Yep.
and they just want to shut it down. And then there's people on the other side of the spectrum, which to me is almost harder to understand. Where people are saying like, well, artists, we need you to stop gatekeeping this talent.
Okay.
And it's like,
Wait, what?
there's no gate.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, do you say that to a basketball player? Do you go up and I need you to stop gatekeeping the basketball skills?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
That's
this is
true.
something you develop. It's a muscle you build, however you apply it in whichever field of interest you have. So, it's like, again, it's a tool. And if anything, it can benefit you just to understand, hey, how can this make what I do better? And in some industries, there's practical applications right now. Other industries, it's not really there yet, but it probably will be to some degree in every industry.
Every single one.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yep.
Great. Well, since we actually have an artist here, I know I've spoken to a director that I worked for in animation. He's a big practical guy, but he's a little older. So I figure I want to ask you: do you like drawing more traditional on the cardboard, or do you like the digital? Having done both, what I know you kind of said, what's your favorite, or is it one has its own application, one has another?
Yeah, no, I'd probably lean more towards that, where it kind of just depends on the application needed. They both have some wonderful things, like to first, I guess, talk about traditional artwork. So I'll just hold up real quick. What was this? End of 2022.
Yes.
I put it together. This is my cardboard art collection. So this
Very
collects
cool.
about
Yes.
8 years of artwork.
And you
that I
did these
worked
at
on.
conventions, right? Like you go to conventions and you draw
Yeah, I go
custom
to-
art
Those
for
are all
people.
hand drawn.
comic book conventions, and these are all hand drawn. It's
So
an
cool.
original piece of work.
Yep.
And so that was kind of the pull for it, was like, this is something that is original.
Mhm.
Like nobody else has this. This is yours.
Mhm.
That sort of thing. And that's something that, has always been a draw for people to go to comic conventions and meet artists, is to get original work.
Mhm.
My spin was just putting it on cardboard. That was just something that I didn't see out there. And I loved kind of the toned color of
I
cardboard.
was going to say, where'd that idea come
Yeah,
from?
yeah.
Did you have a lot of
Yeah.
Amazon boxes lying around, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
What can I use these
Well,
for?
in college, when I was, going through my program there, we had a lot of assignments where we did drawing on toned paper. And so that was kind of a new thing. I never really did that. Everything was always on white paper. So you got to approach it differently because you can have both your darks and your whites be high contrast on that. And I just thought that looked really cool. I got decent at it. And then years later, when I started going to the conventions and things, I was trying to figure out a way to offer a commission of original work that wasn't just white paper. That's what came to mind, because it's like, it's rigid. It's its own like canvas. It's not floppy. It's durable, and like you said, you got clean cardboard lying around your house, cut it up, and
Right.
I mean, it's free paper,
Yeah,
so
That's cool.
a lot of people, will tell me how, environmentally conscious and friendly I am, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was,
That's why. That's my, yeah.
so I love that aspect of it. But then, then there's the real life. Okay, when I've got a project that I may need to do revisions on. With the comic book, I'm mass producing pages. Like, to go back to do that all traditionally would just be way more time consuming.
Yeah,
So-
Robert spoke to that in another episode. You said an old writer's assistant talked about revisions on a typewriter.
Yeah.
And how you-
Actually, like
Yeah.
copy and pasting. When they say copy and paste, they
That's
literally were
crazy.
cutting out
Yeah.
paper and pasting it onto the new script typewriter. I mean,
Yeah, and you said if you had to do that, there's
would
no
not
way
be a
you'd be a
writer.
writer. So
Yeah.
pass.
it's
Yeah.
the,
You guys probably know Drew Struzan, who's done like the Star Wars posters, Indiana Jones.
Sure. Yeah.
He's the man. Back in the day, everything was analog, and so he would do stuff like that. He would actually, like, when they'd correct something, he'd like make a patch and they'd cut it out and they'd put it right in the spot it needed to be for that poster or whatever.
Wow.
That's incredible. Yeah.
my favorite story similar was it was a couple of years ago, but we were we had a couple big projects going on, so we were really going out trying to find artists because we needed people. And Daryl, who is he grew up with the real traditional, he went to Cal Arts with all those guys.
Big Disney guys.
Big,
Lasseter
yeah, those
and-
big guys. So he has a network of brilliant artists, but a lot of them are a little old school. And we brought this one guy in; he could draw like no other. But we were a digital animation studio, so we sit him down, we put him in front of the Cintiq, to draw, and he goes into Daryl's office and he asked for animation paper, and so he couldn't pick up drawing on the Cintiq. He would literally take the animation paper and put it on the Cintiq, tape it down, and draw it by hand on top of the $2,000 monitor, and then we'd have to scan it in to make it digital, and someone would go over and digitally trace it and
It's
whatnot.
cool though.
But
Yeah, and I've worked with artists, from that era.
Yeah.
Worked with a guy who worked with Don Bluth for years. So American Tail, Land Before Time. Another guy who was in kind of the early to mid 90s Disney on Tarzan,
Wow.
Beauty and the Beast. He worked on those, and like they crossed over, but it wasn't an easy crossover.
For sure.
Like, there was some times I remember I was actually responsible for getting their scanned work and then preparing their line work for digital coloring.
Wow, yeah.
So,
But,
yeah,
but it works for him, and it worked because he could draw so well. The guy it was a beautiful, and
Right.
it's like,
yeah,
there are not many people we would make this kind of exception to our pipeline for, but when you
Yeah.
can draw that well,
Yeah.
we'll take it however you can give it. But it was just so funny to me to be like, watch him drawing on top of a Cintiq. It just cracked me up.
Used it as a desk.
Because those drawing desks, you can't even really, they're vintage items now.
Yeah.
and it's crazy. There's like that tactile feel of like drawing on paper. The drag that paper provides, that sort of thing, is totally different than your slick Wacom screen.
Mhm.
And it's like it's a different experience. And so yeah, when you're used to putting down your lines on something that has a little bit more resistance and then go into that, you're like, oh, this doesn't feel right.
I mean, you can compare it to digital reading versus turning the page of a book. A lot of people say,
Yeah.
I still want to turn the page of a book. It
You wanna
feels like
hold
you're
it,
doing
yeah.
more. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's kind of a comparison that I'm sure that they can they would draw from. But
Yeah, that's awesome. Robert, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. You kind of went into a little bit about the script and whatnot, but besides the music that was the inspiration, anything else about like what made you wanted to write science fiction? Because you had mentioned earlier you'd done comedy, you did horror. Why a sci-fi spec? Or is it just what moved you that
It's
day?
what moved me.
Okay.
You know, I had just had a mini-series on the Sci-Fi Network sold and did well. It was called, well, when I spec'd it as a feature, it was called 6 Days Till Sunday. And it was about a guy who receives a briefcase. And inside the briefcase is the unsolved murder file for his own murder that's going to happen in 6 days. So 6 days till Sunday. He has 6 days to solve his own murder. It was supposed to be a 2-hour movie. It ends up selling to Sci-Fi. They do a 5-part miniseries. They cut the budget. We lose a day, and it's called 5 Days to Midnight. Whole other story. But I really loved how it came out. I love sci-fi. I always have. Again,
Well,
Star
you're
Wars
a big Star Wars
was
fan.
a big. I just love how you can. Anything goes, right? You can go wild with your imagination, and what would the future be like in your mind? And I came up with the idea. They usually just kind of strike me. I believe, like 6 Days Till Sunday, the whole story came from the title. I was at a play that I was bored to death watching. A friend was in, and during it, I don't know why, I just started thinking 6 days till Sunday. Well, what would happen in 6 days? Well, what if, anyways. So I'm pretty sure expiration date came from like me looking at a milk carton. I mean, like, what's the expiration date? And I thought, oh, that's a cool title. Like, what could that story be? And then the story evolved, and it had to be futuristic because we don't have capsules implanted in our hearts that could randomly go and kill
That we
us.
know of. Yep.
That we know of. But yeah, so and again, I was coming off of having done the miniseries. I was looking to write a new spec, and that was the one that just kind of, like you said, spoke to me, and I was anxious to do.
Well, that's great. I really respect that you can go across all these different genres.
yeah,
It's I don't know if it's what's best.
Well, it's kind of like
You know,
said,
and they say like you should do one thing. Like the business likes to stick you in a box.
yeah.
And we've had this discussion. I understand it. Like Lee, I had said in a previous episode, I think, about like, hey, listen, you're having your house remodeled and you need a banister done. There's the guy that says, hey, I do everything. I'm a carpenter. I could do kitchen cabinets. I can do banisters. I can do vanities. And then you have the guy that says, I've spent my entire life doing banisters. That's for 3 generations I've done banisters. You just want to go with the guy that's all he does is banisters, because you figure he's going to be better at it. So I've always been told, pick a genre and stick with it, but it just isn't. I just, again, you have to really, whatever story you want to tell, and Lee, I'm sure it's the same with you, whatever art project it is, it has to speak to you in some way. And if someone said you can only draw Ninja Turtles for the rest of your life, yeah, you enjoy drawing Ninja Turtles, but you also enjoy.
I wouldn't argue too much.
Yeah, I was going to say,
That
I
one
don't
you might be
think
okay.
Lee would argue with that.
I mean, I guess if someone said you can only, I don't know. I also go where the money is, as we discussed in previous podcasts. Like sometimes you write things you might not necessarily write, but you learn from it. Like, which is a great. I'm going to throw it to you now, Lee. So, do you have a specific Ninja Turtles object you like to draw, or genre you like to draw, or is it all?
That's the thing. And hearing you talk about this goes back to another topic that you guys have discussed, and that's your dad's book, right? Like with, jack of all trades, master of none type thing.
Yes.
Like that. I mean, that's so relatable. It's just like, I think that's part of that creative fire that's in us. It's, we do really love certain aspects, but then we're okay to wander. We're okay to try new things. We want to expand a little bit, and that may take us into a whole nother focus, and so, I mean, I think about kind of where I started, and I was way into superheroes. And I don't know if you remember, Robert, I created this superhero named Mayhem when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So
Very cool.
I created him and created this whole mythos that tied in with like Egyptian mythology, and then I crossed it over with some Greek mythology, and then brought it into the modern day. And so I had a lot of fun with that. And like, I remember pretty vividly through pretty much my teenage years, that's what I was really into as far as my own personal creative ventures, was that. And then as I got into college, and was reading, I guess, more wide variety of graphic novels. I really got into graphic novels in college. A buddy of mine there got me into some good books. And so I started kind of, seeing some different genres out there, outside of the superhero stuff. And I did a short story. This was just prior to expiration date, and it was called Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
And did a short little 8-page thing, and it was very steampunk heavy influenced visually, and this idea of tying it into the kind of a dystopian future, but now they have this steampunk technology because things have gone defunct, so they're using steam. And so I got way into that, and then, of course, switching gears with expiration date and going on to the futuristic, the technological, the cyberpunk, and that sort of thing, getting involved with that. And yeah, just these themes kind of come, and then there's all these, stories and characters that you get to explore within each of these different genres and that sort of thing that I, really had fun with. Ninja Turtles has always been one of my favorites. I watched that as a ton as a kid. I think it came out when I was probably like 6 years old or so, when the cartoons came out. And so then, as I guess a little bit more experienced artist, I got into, okay, I can draw turtles better now. I had a lot of fun drawing it, and actually got quite a bit of, I guess, my fans and followers on Instagram just loving it, and a lot of commissions coming from it and people buying it. And so I was like, I've been doing a lot of turtle stuff in recent years, just because I have so many fans and art followers that they love that. So it's like, I enjoy drawing it, I might as well give them what they want.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? By following your passion, something you like, you tapped into a whole market.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
so, I
I'm a
mean,
big fan. It's my generation. I love the
Yeah,
turtles.
turtles are
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm still waiting for, the owners, the IP owners, to come knocking to pay me to actually draw them for them. I mean, that'd be great.
But
Um,
you never know, though.
Yeah, that's right.
You
Yeah,
never
Eyes
know.
open
but I
for
mean,
that.
that's how the comic book world is. So fan art is kind of a big thing. You go to these conventions, and it's basically these artists drawing, whatever characters are popular and people are demanding to see, right? And there's always the question, oh, are you allowed to do that sort of thing? Well, a lot of us kind of stick by the rule, well, keep drawing it until they tell you not to, or
Yeah.
give you a job.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
There you
that's a
go.
great way of doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that's really how it is, because if they don't want you to, they will send you a cease and desist, and as long as
Right.
you cease, you're in the clear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
If you put up a fight, you could get into some trouble.
Right.
But really, a lot of these guys, they hire them because they see, well, you handle our IP well, and the people like your stuff, so they're gonna, you got
And
the
you're a
brand
fan, right? Like
recognition.
you're a true fan of that, so that passion comes out and shows through the art as well, I think. So yeah, it's a natural fit. They should come on, hire Lee.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I could
so.
use a new Ninja Turtles. I know they've done a lot of stuff, a lot of live action, a lot of hybrid stuff.
Weird, yeah, weird.
I
things.
wouldn't mind a nice traditionally animated, hand drawn type
Yeah.
thing.
Let's do it.
Let's bring back the old school, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
What are you working on now, Lee? Like what's the future? What do you what's coming up?
Well, currently, I mean, obviously, I've got my hand in multiple places and things. As far as kind of personal projects, I'm still building, a lot of fans and trying to just get, I guess, more eyes on my work through comic conventions. I've been doing kind of these. I'm going to show you guys a few things here.
Sweet.
Been doing these kind of, I guess, character collages. And the first one I did was for a bunch of
Oh,
characters
that's cool.
That's very cool.
inspired from some 80s fantasy films. And
That's
I
awesome.
called it my dark 80s fantasy. Some things that I grew up on as a kid that I loved, and was terrified by these films, and so I put this together, and boy, this just took off.
That's
And
cool.
That's
so,
awesome.
So that's what, Legend?
yeah, we've got like Legend, we've got Return to Oz, Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, and Neverending Story.
Neverending
So
That's very
characters
cool.
from all those films kind of mashed into this
That's very cool.
That is.
illustration.
Now, how
here.
long
And
did something like that take you?
yeah, this one was a slow process just because it was an idea that just kind of, you know how it is. It lingers in your
Yep.
mind and you get to it when you can get to it.
Mhm.
And then when it finally was like, okay, it's fully formed, now I can execute it,
Mhm.
then it was just, a couple nights over probably 2 weeks that I was
Wow.
able to get it done.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Um,
That's awesome.
and so that was the first one of this one, and this just really took off. So I was like, okay, I want to kind of play around with this idea more of these character collages.
Mhm.
I think within the next year, I came out with a different genre. This is
Oh,
from
yeah.
Studio
Oh, I
Ghibli,
recognize, yeah.
Cool.
Hayao Miyazaki,
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
his characters, and Hayao just won Best Picture for Boy and the Heron.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
Best animated picture, I should say.
Cool.
And so I took a bunch of my beloved characters from his, mostly like creatures
Yep.
from his films, and did the same
Is
sort
that
of
My
thing.
Neighbor?
Yeah, My Neighbor
T-
Totoro.
Yep. And then that one down
Yeah,
there.
Spirited Away.
That
No
gave Paul
Face.
nightmares.
Yeah.
My son. Yeah.
So,
So
cool.
yeah, I this one again, very popular. And then just this year, got very interested because there's been a revival in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
So
Ah,
so
sweet.
Oh,
Look at
that's
that.
cool.
That's
and this
awesome.
is the latest
Wow.
one.
That's really
very
cool.
It's awesome.
I'm going to be going to my first convention in April, Level Up in Las Vegas, where
Hey, you're
I'll
going to be
have
in my
this-
part of the town.
There we
Lee.
go.
Yep. Yeah,
Next month?
Yeah,
that's
we're
it.
we're all coming.
Yeah, we got to come see you.
Yeah, so that's been something that I've been really kind of just steadily working on personally, and then also I'm revisiting Exodus. So I've talked with Mike and Robert about this.
Mhm.
So this book, I'm gonna hold just for a second. I think I've
Yep.
got the old book here. Oh, there it is. Yep. So here we go.
Yep.
So this is the
Yeah,
original
yes.
8-page book. Very short story, and again, heavily steampunk. And just over the years, this I guess more the whole story beyond this 8 pages has really kind of been bubbling in my mind, and I've been putting it down and just have a Google Doc that I go to and put in ideas when they come. And so now I'm just really pacing myself to, I guess get more disciplined on putting some time in and putting pages in. So like today I'm working on page 17, just
great.
working on roughs really.
Mhm.
But once I get, I think we'll say there's chapters to this story. Once I finish chapter 1 of this story in rough, then I'm going to go through and actually complete it.
Mm.
And I'm just really enjoying it. I'm having a great time. I feel like this is a story that is important to me, and I feel like my love for it is coming to life. I've shared it with a few people, and a few people have responded well to it. So I feel like, maybe there's something here. People tends to resonate with them, and so it's something I just want to continue to develop. And again, stylistically, I think I'm approaching it a lot different than I did. This was nearly 14 years ago when I did this first one, so it's like it's totally different the way I'm approaching it. I hope I'm approaching it better. It feels better.
Sure. You
and-
probably learned a lot over the time
Sure.
and absorbed a
Yeah,
lot of other
that's what you
different
hope.
things.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can soak in over that time period to bring
Yeah.
back a project.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Exactly. So I feel like what I learned with Expiration Day and with the cardboard art, they've just really like helped me, I guess, refine my skills to where it's like, okay, now I can sit down and do it, and this story, it takes in elements. I kind of like to share it that it's kind of like Star Wars. George Lucas, he took a lot of things that he loved. He took old Kurosawa samurai films and World War II films, and hot rods and that sort of stuff, and he took them into this epic fantasy, this space fantasy, and he put it together. And I feel like I'm approaching it very similarly, where it's, I love steampunk, I love old westerns, I love the good, the bad, and the ugly. The name Exodus is a callback to the story of Moses in the book of Exodus. And so taking all these things that are important to me and significant, and just finding a way to weave a story that is my own, but also kind of pays homage to those things and builds off of those things that I enjoyed from those different genres. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's cool.
It's very cool.
It's very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Great. Well, I think we're pretty much at time, but Lee, stick around here. We have a segment we do at the end where we get questions from usually art or film students from Mike and I's alma mater. We have a question here from CJ, who says, or asks, have you ever found yourself procrastinating to where you weren't able to get your job done on time? How do you push through it, like a writer's or artist block?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. Should we let our guests?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lee,
sure.
what do you
Guest
think?
first.
What do you say?
Guest first.
Honestly, for me personally, procrastinating other people's work is not something I often do, because I do feel that accountability, that they're relying on me. So it's actually working with somebody kind of helps me stay motivated
Sure.
and knowing that, hey, they need this. They're depending on me. I need to be the guy they can trust. So for me personally, I can say that I try my hardest not to procrastinate other people's work. I think on my own stuff, that's probably where I do it worse, because, I'll come up with any excuse sometimes, like, well, this is going on, or, I do have other people's work I need to take care of, that sort of thing. Some of that's legitimate, but other times it's just like, I'm not getting to it. So, I think there's, definitely good things that we can use in our own personal projects to help us stay on task, have some goals, have some milestones that we make sure we're meeting, set dates of like, I want to have this done by this day or whatever. And those little things will help me stay on task. And I think if you struggle with it in your client work or, projects and whatnot, I would just approach it the same way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, these are the milestones and this is when they need to be completed. So make it happen.
Yeah, milestones I think are very important. It gives you psychological but setting good milestones to make you feel good. Don't stretch too far, because then you'll be like, it's so far out I can't reach it. Pick milestones that you can reasonably reach, and when you get that, you get such a rush and endorphins that you're probably going to continue to move on to the next one. Exactly.
Yeah, there's
It's
such
great.
satisfaction in checking
Now,
something off.
for you, your hobby is also drawing, and your job is drawing. Do you ever get drawn out in a day? Or, I mean, I'm sure you have other hobbies as well, but is it to the point where, do you ever feel drawn out? Drawn out, I guess that's the way of putting it.
Yeah. Burnout or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think occasionally, I think for me, it's always like, I love when I do get the time to do my own stuff, because then it feels even more satisfying. Because I mean, sure, it feels great when your client is happy with the project and you get the kudos and you get the payday and everything, but to, I think, see your own fires like take form and everything, that's just really rewarding. So yeah.
Awesome. Robert, from the writing perspective, how do you tackle writer's block?
Oh, you just push through it. Like I've realized, like I've learned so much over 35 years, like we were discussing. I don't think there's any such thing as writer's block. I think it's procrastination.
Okay.
I really do. I think it's your way of procrastinating, saying, I can't think of it, I'm blocked. Sit down, write. Just write through it. That's why I write so quickly now. Like I've always been a procrastinator. I was a procrastinator in school. Like if I had a paper due, if I had to study for a test, I've never missed a deadline. It's like you're saying, Lee, like I want to be the guy is going to deliver. Yeah. But if I have 6 weeks to do something, it doesn't mean I take 6 weeks to do it. I procrastinate for 4 of those weeks. If I start today, it's 4 pages a day. Well, if I start tomorrow, it's 4.5 pages. If I start next week, it's 6 pages. If I start, and then you get down to this internal clock I've always had that can say, okay, now you're at the point where if you don't start, you're not gonna be able to do it.
And I do feel like the creative process, even though you're not actually writing, you're thinking about
absolutely.
it. You're writing it in your head
You're right.
so that you
It's
can,
percolating.
when you
It's
sit
churning.
down.
Absolutely. When you're
Yep.
sleeping, when you're showering, when you
100%.
are procrastinating, you're right. When you're playing the piano, Derek, it's all part of that process. That's very true.
Plus,
Yeah.
you found out what works best for you. You like I think you go away.
Yeah,
you
now I
write,
go away.
but you found your way of doing it, and
Yes.
it works for you, and that's the key.
I think they say when the pain of writing becomes greater than the pain of not writing, that's when you write. You know what I mean? Like when that pain, you just can't stand not writing anymore because for me, it's guilt or whatever. I should be. Then you finally do. And
I'm that same way with my projects. Like Exodus was just one of those things that was gnawing on me. Like I need to do this.
yes.
I need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of like, I guess, like rough drafts, right? Like I said, like right now I haven't done anything completely final for this book yet, because I've really just felt like I want to get a rhythm of just putting out something.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect yet. Like I need to get it going, and then you come back to it and you're like, oh yeah, this is good, but I'm going to change this. You know what I mean? You give yourself a good foundation because you got those ideas, that nagging feeling that drove you there. It's all gone now. It's all out. And you go back and do that pass to really kind of tighten it up. And so, I love that part of the process.
And another thing I think we spoke about it last is having that support system, because I think procrastination in at least some of the ways is self-doubt, right? Like we're doubting ourselves, we're double questioning what's going on, and having a good support system behind us who is support. Hey, your ideas are good. Keep going, keep trying, don't give up. Having that support system is so critical. At least for me, I find, when I get stuck in my own head, we're our own worst critics, right? Like that we're constantly telling ourselves that we can't when we know that we can. And so, having a good support system behind us who's encouraging and being the cheerleaders and telling us that we're doing a good job and continuing to push forward, I think is critical in this. In this world, every world.
That is a great
My
point.
biggest thing, and it's the hardest step, but is to just get started.
Yeah.
I know for me, for editing, I'll sit there and be like, I don't want to, I just not feeling it. But as soon as I get started, I'm fine.
That's the same thing. I mean, it'd be like saying editor's block.
Yeah.
No, you just don't want to start.
Right, exactly.
Once
It's
you
just
start, then it
start.
starts
Once I get going, I'm like, what was I so worried about?
Sure.
Like, just knock it out now. It's
That's
just
what they say.
getting
Like
over
do
that.
do
to
a
me,
minute, and then once a minute will
Yes.
turn into 3, that turns
like,
into
why-
5, that turns into 20.
I don't know. I just think it's a scam. Like writers came up with this term. Like I have plumber's block. I have like come on. The one career that you could have some kind of magical block and that exonerates you from having to do your job. It's Anyways.
I believe they call it a plumber's clog in their industry.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's right.
You're right. Thanks for the correction.
Farmer's Cog. Okay, great. Well, another great episode.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee, for
Thank
joining
you
us.
so much,
That was
Lee.
first.
This is
having
great.
me.
Our first remote guest, our
Yeah.
first guest period. Actually.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. If you're watching on YouTube, as I said before, do the like, subscribe, and
Share
follow,
and
share.
comment.
Everything that's on
comment.
the graphic that's somewhere here.
Comment.
And whatnot. And if you're just listening on Apple or Spotify, I appreciate your support. Share with others.
And Lee's links
Yes,
are
I'll
in
link
in the description, right?
Everything
Yes.
will be in the
including this convention coming up in Vegas.
Yeah.
We'll put that
Level
for you.
Up Expo.
So if you're in the area, go and visit Lee.
Yeah, do it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everybody listening. Thanks for the chat,
Yes,
everybody.
You don't have your Can We Be Frank glasses, Lee,
we
but
go.
we're cheering.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to everyone. Everybody have a good day.
There we
go. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Can we be frank? Can we